Now inside the U.S. headquarters to take down ISIS. This joint operations base in the Persian Gulf is where the U.S. military coordinates every airstrike. All the intelligence for today and the future comes through here. It was 1 year ago today that ISIS swept into Mosul in Iraq, pulling the U.S. into a war we thought had ended. Right now, we're going inside the massive operations center and going one-on-one with the general commanding the mission to defeat ISIS for good.
This is really the centerpiece of our current operations in Iraq and Syria.
Here in this command center, the war room of all war rooms in the battle against ISIS, the fight is 24/7. Video feeds flow in from the battlefield, and every bit of intelligence, from satellite feeds to Twitter feeds, monitored minute by minute. So this is really where you coordinate everything, the whole battle space.
That's correct. This is where the current operations pieces are happening.
There's a fires desk coordinating airstrikes on Syria and Iraq, the intelligence desk, social media, logistics, and spots for all the coalition partners. What are we looking at now?
You're seeing the final results of the aircraft acquiring a particular target I talked about earlier.
In other words, when the missiles are fired or the bombs are dropped.
Correct.
This is the first time cameras have been allowed in.
Firepower, artillery pieces, improvised explosive devices, vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, weapons, etc. We've taken those things off the battlefield.
A battlefield that a year ago was just emerging. Last June, ISIS, also known as Daesh, firmly stamped its name across the map of the Middle East, marching with terrifying speed across Syria and Iraq, grabbing world attention as it quickly overran Mosul, Iraq's second largest city, even threatening Baghdad. I was there last year when Iraqis were volunteering in droves to protect their capital. There seems to be an incredible zeal among these young men. They seem absolutely fearless, but they really have no idea what they're getting into. And neither did the rest of the world. Today, the U.S. is back at war with more than 3,000 troops on the ground in Iraq, conducting more than 3,400 airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, and spending more than $2.5 billion. In charge of this massive effort, known as Operation Inherent Resolve, is Lieutenant General James Terry.
I think there's progress in the campaign in a whole range of places. We're starting to see Daesh seek cover in terms of physically digging into positions. The first phase of that campaign was halt Daesh. We feel like we have done that.
You believe you've halted?
I do.
ISIS?
I do.
It doesn't look that way. Recent images paint a different picture of the enemy overtaking the Iraqi city of Ramadi, setting off 30 massive car bombs, some suicide bombs using American Humvees stolen from fleeing Iraqi forces. Retaking that city is now the next main objective. You think they're ready to go?
I think they're preparing to go right now.
So you wouldn't say hold back until you know what you're doing here?
I think they've got some things they have to put in place, and I think they're making the necessary moves to do that.
General Robert Castelvi is just out of Iraq, where he worked directly with Iraqi forces.
They are ready to go in. We have assisted them in developing a campaign plan to be an operational plan to be able to go back in. They've already started going back in.
So they've started to try to retake Ramadi.
They've already started.
You've been in Iraq before. You've seen the billions of dollars we've spent on this effort. Why will it work this time?
It's going to work. It has to work. This time I think they're much more embracing of the training, much more embracing of the equipment that we're bringing.
Key to supporting Iraqi troops as they take back Ramadi, U.S. and coalition airstrikes. This is an MQ-1, a remotely piloted aircraft, or as we call them, drones. They are in the fight 24/7 over Iraq, over Syria, armed with Hellfire missiles. How those missiles reach their targets is the center of a heated debate. Should U.S. troops be on the front lines with the Iraqi security forces, side by side, helping to call in those airstrikes? The troops who would be there JTACs, or Joint Terminal Attack Controllers. Right now, this JTAC veteran of 12 deployments has been calling in those strikes remotely from a strike cell in Iraq. If it was up to him, the JTACs would be forward in the fight.
I think we'd find it an easier way of doing it.
More effective in getting more targets.
More effective, yeah.
But even though they're not up close, they can see how ISIS has adapted to the firepower being aimed their way.
They have more of a tactical head. They're more disciplined than I've seen in the past. They're more of a fighter than sitting back and planting the IEDs more.
Right now, they're doing horrible things and throwing people off the tops of buildings. Do you think about that?
I think they all need to die.
General Terry says plenty already have.
We keep hearing about numbers of fighters who were killed, number of ISIS fighters. You heard the Deputy Secretary of State the other day say 10,000 ISIS fighters. Do you know that's true?
That's a good number.
And Terry takes pride in what he says are a very low number of civilian casualties in the airstrikes, but he knows this fight will be a long one.
I think it will take time. I think there will be ups and downs. Let's continue to work with Iraqis and make them successful, and I think that's the way ahead.